Complications faced by survivors of rape are actually what we term the short-term complications and the long-term. For the short-term, it usually involves physical injuries, wound, like we will call it in layman's term, and also other things that pose a determinant to their health, such as sexually transmitted infection, unintended pregnancy, and the risks of unsafe abortion.
Response level at the moment is very encouraging, right? In terms that when they come in here, initially the first shock which they have is trauma, okay? They feel like, okay, this is the end. I use the word they look hopeless. They feel dismayed, they are pathways. But when they come here, they leave here with their heads high. They are hopeful that yes, they can do more, their lives are back, and they know now that they can be advocates even for sexual abuses and all that in these families.
My name is Dr. Aniekan Makanjuola. I'm the head of the Clinical Service Division and the Center Manager with WARIF Center. My role entails providing medical and forensic services, as well as coordinating the provision of other healthcare services to survivors of rape and sexual assault. Our mission since inception in 2016 is to raise awareness and to advocate about gender-based violence in Nigeria and globally. And we want to see a society that is free of rape and sexual violence. I believe one of the risks women and girls face exactly has always been the underlying cause of it being gender inequality. Women not having access to some of the basic essential services that they are expected to have, which is safety, access to proper health care, access to rights, and the freedom to decide what they want to do. I think that has always been the underlying cause of gender-based violence in our society, and the patriarchy nature where women do not have, is believed not to have the right or to access these basic services, the health and the right to their sexual and reproductive health. That to us has always been the underlying cause of sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. So complications faced by survivors of rape are actually what we term short-term complications and the long-term. For the short-term, it usually involves physical injuries, wound, like we will call it in layman's term, and also other things that pose a determinant to their health, such as risks of sexually transmitted infection, unintended pregnancy, and the risks of unsafe abortion for those that might want to terminate pregnancy as a result of rape, of sexual violence. For the long term, you have survivors that suffer complications such as mental health challenges, such as depression, suicidal ideation, and even suicide in itself. You have survivors that start to suffer complications that involve them being addicted to substance abuse and drugs, that to enable them to deal with the impact of the rape and sexual violence that they've experienced. For most survivors that have suffered sexual abuse, the initial reaction is not to seek help. And the initial reaction is shame and fear of fear exactly of what the society will say, fear of being blamed, fear of being stigmatized. And so that in itself discourages them from accessing care that they need at that crucial moment. And that has always been challenging because most survivors feel that they won't be believed and they will be blamed. So their initial reaction is not to speak about the rape, is not to talk about it. And that in itself hinders them from being able to access the immediate health and psychosocial services that they need to enable them to deal with the impact of rape and sexual violence that they've experienced.
Okay, my name is Counsellor Mrs. Gloria Joacquim. I'm the Head Counsellor for WARIF Center, that's Women at Peace International Foundation. Proper medical care would entail them when they come in, they follow the procedures, which is registration, they see the nurse. When they're done with the nurse, okay, then they move to see, depending on the age, they have to see the doctor for medical assessment and for other proper medical needs. as well as the counselor for the psychosocial counseling, which has to do with their mental health, that's a psychological health, and make them feel better. In WARIF, it's free. So we have donors that donate towards the plight of these survivors. So when they come in here, it's at no charge of theirs. They're giving all these facilities or these services free of charge.
First of all, what we are very particular about is raising awareness about the provision and the availability of the essential care that the survivors need. I think survivors being aware that these services are available in WARIF Center, for example, is very, very important. And that has been our goal, to raise this awareness that survivors anywhere in the country, they can access help and they can get the immediate care that they need in a manner that is safe, that is confidential. And it gives them that sense to knowing that there's someone out there, there's a place like WARIF out there where they can access this help without being blamed, without being judged. And for survivors that have been assaulted, they can have access to free medical care, free forensic medical examination for those of them that want to prosecute, in one prosecution, and the arrest of the perpetrators. So we have survivors being able to access counseling services over time, at the immediate time they present, and we have access to group therapy where they can meet other survivors and able to talk about how they've been able to deal with the trauma and to be able to move on as well. I think for survivors to be able to have access to that is important, that they have the channels such as the LEGIT to be able to raise awareness that there's a place like WARIF situated in Lagos State for them to be able to have these services, and it is free of charge. They don't have to pay any fee, they don't have to pay any money for it, it's free. And we have the availability of trained medical forensic examiners as well as counselors that are able to provide this care for them in a manner that's professional and a manner that's respectful.
Proper medical care for WARIF for those survivors who come in costs 66,000 naira. And this entails them seeing the doctor, then having all the tests they need to take. That's at the laboratory, they need to take all the tests, and then as well as seeing the counselor, it costs 66,000 naira. The journey simply entails them speaking out first, that is that they desire help, and then when they seek help with professionals, because this is very important, that talk to those who are trained for it. So when they come in here, it starts with the medical care, which they get from the lab. They have to do tests to ascertain their state. They could be susceptible to sexual venereal diseases, STDs. And then after all that, the test is done, they have to see the doctor for assessment, also do forensic care, forensic examination, then also to see the counselor, which is my own space, where they now have to assess medical care to help them cope with the trauma of the abuse.
Presently, we have our center situated in Lagos State for women in Lagos. We also have our confidential toll-free line where women any part of the country can access to us. We provide our counseling services over the phone for those that do not feel safe enough to come to the center to access the care physically. So we're able to provide these services for them. And so we also have our WARIF services on our email, on our website, where you can drop your concerns and your inquiries, and there's always someone that can respond to it and give them the necessary advice that they need.
The victim will have to undergo counseling in WARIF at least 3 times. This inclusive with group therapy. We take it very serious because we know that there's commonality in every purpose, okay? So when they get to meet those who have gone through the same thing, they discuss with them here in confidentiality, okay? That's the counselor and the survivors. They get better. They find out, oh, so I'm not alone in this journey, okay? And they heal faster. So they have return visits 2 times from the first visit, which we call follow-up with VARAS, then group counseling. We then tell that their counseling session is over. But that does not mean that we don't have extended ones. For those who feel that they still need more counseling, they still come into the center and we take care of their to access those services. Nigerians are not yet totally aware, but the awareness level is getting better in terms of knowing about the plight of these young girls and victims. But we can still do more. There's room for improvement. But yes, when compared to the past, there's been a lot of improvements. Okay, because now we get calls at this center from even third parties that say, oh, this is happening in our area. Somebody is being abused, a neighbor is being beating the wife, and then they call in, they go online to get our numbers. Sometimes there's a referral from a friend or someone that know about us. And when they call in, we give them our address, they come in. And for those that is with sometimes we have to send social workers just to ensure the safety of the victim. Okay, so yes, it's getting better, but we can still do more. For WARIF, not fully being funded because we have a lot of projects that still need lots of funding. Okay, because everyday challenges demand more funding. Okay, like I mentioned, the statistics according to WHO says that 1 in 4 girls before the age of 18 would have experienced sexual abuse, and that's 25% of the population. You can imagine that. Okay, so no matter the funding that we have now, we see more funding. Okay, so and this is done by private individuals and those international bodies that feel that this is an area that they work with or that they're interested in. So that's how we get our funding from. The response level at the moment is very encouraging, right? In terms that when they come in here, initially the first shock which they have is the trauma. Okay, they feel like, okay, this is the end. So I use the word, they look hopeless. They feel dismayed, they are powerless. But when they come here, they leave here with their heads high. They are hopeful that yes, they can do more. Their lives are back, and they know now that they can be advocates even for sexual abuses and other against violence.
I think we are always so glad to work with individuals, corporate bodies, and organizations, and LEGIT has been one of our collaborators in ensuring that these survivors have access. We're talking about 100 women here who need immediate and long-term medical care. And LEGIT has been very helpful in ensuring that these survivors have access to free medical care, free forensic services, as well as free laboratory and medical treatment. And this in itself will go a long way in ensuring that these survivors are able to avoid the complication, like we mentioned, the short-term and long-term complication.
The first thing they have to do is willingness. Okay, there must be willingness to seek help, and then when they come in, okay, they are supposed to also be willing to take on all the counseling services offered to them, as well as the medical and every other. Okay, they must be willing. If they are minors, we expect them to have someone that is as an adult accompanying them to the center. But if they are above the age, then they are okay. Then we also want to know if they are willing, because we always encourage them to report to police. When some get here, they don't even know about that they need to report. They have not reported cases. So it's when they get to the center that will now enlighten them, and they know they're supposed to report, so that these victims can be brought to book. But what we ensure to do is to let them see the pros and cons, which is the advantage and disadvantages. That if I keep quiet, am I not aiding this victim to go ahead to continue to perpetrate this violence? And we also ensure to let them know that you are not the first person. It's because probably the person that this person has offended before didn't report. Would you rather let this person continue to perpetrate this violence, or you ensure that this person is brought to book? Because we know that prevention is better than cure. Now they pay through it. Is it not better to prevent someone else from going to the same thing? So most of the time, I can say 99% of the times, they go ahead to say, I want to report this case. I didn't see it from that angle before. Because we've had as little as 6 months old here, between 0 and we've had even 50-something years old coming. Okay, I had a case of a 55-year-old woman that was raped by a young boy. Okay, so the age range is what the least. The youngest has been 6 months old. Yes, there have been challenges in terms of getting some clients, okay, to report the perpetrators to the appropriate authority, which is security agency, for instance. And this is also, like I said, a failure of the system, where these perpetrators know that they can go to the family of the victim and they offer them money, that's funds. Okay, that if I offer you money and then I can buy you instant. So when we get that, we always ask them that what is the value of that money to your child? Okay, in so and so number of years, would you think you have made the best decision? Okay, have you looked at the long-term effects, okay, of this abuse on that child, okay, that you want to collect money for, okay? And then we ask them, okay, what else do you think will happen to this perpetrator when you let them go through? They now believe that, okay, I can always buy myself out of this. So when we get them down like that, okay, despite the challenges we have, the back and forth, you understand, most parents will at the end of the day say, I think my child is worth more than money, and then they will now do the right thing, which is reporting them to the appropriate authorities.